When we think of our core, most of us imagine the rectus abdominis, which is our six-pack muscles, as well as exercises like crunches and sit-ups, but your core is so much more than that. It is the powerhouse for your entire body, responsible for movement, stability, and strength. And if you're only training in one way, you're leaving a lot on the table. In today's video, I'm breaking down the 8 core patterns that every solid training program should cover. These aren't just about looking good, they're the key to real strength, better movement, and helping you to become less injury prone. Now, to train the core comprehensively, you need to address these 4 qualities: rotation, lateral flexion, extension, and flexion. Not only do you need to be able to create movement at the spine, but you also need to be able to resist movement at the spine as well in the form of anti-rotation, anti-lateral flexion, anti-extension, and anti-flexion for a grand total of 8 different patterns. Now, if that sounds overwhelming, don't worry. I'll walk you through my favorite exercise in each of the patterns and show you exactly how to fit it into your routines. So with that being said, let's dive right in. All right, so pattern number 1 is going to be rotation. And one of my favorite exercises that addresses this pattern is going to be the standard banded horizontal chop. So what you're gonna do with this one is you're gonna wrap a band around a squat rack upright or a pole, or you can use a cable machine to make things easier. You'll get your feet about shoulder width apart, grab onto the band with both hands, and you're gonna rotate to the side like this, and then coming back. All right, with your elbows, you're gonna keep a slight bend in your elbows. You don't want them too in tight like a T-Rex. You don't want them super far out. Just a slight natural stance with your elbows. And then from there, staying active through your core, through your arms as you rotate back and forth. All right, if you want, if it feels a little more natural, you can also pivot that back foot. That's gonna be a little bit more hip rotation coming into play. But if you want to do that, you can do that. But I really like trunk rotation just to isolate it. So keeping that foot still, instead moving at the trunk. And for this move, you're gonna switch sides, and I like 2 to 3 sets of 10 reps on each side. Now, some other exercises to train rotation are bicycles, Russian twists, and diagonal chops, all of which are fantastic options to train rotation. All right, so we just talked about creating rotation at the spine. Now let's talk about resisting rotation at the spine for pattern number 2 with one of my favorite anti-rotation movements, the Palloff press. So with this one, you're gonna get set up the same way. Attach a band to a squat rack upright or a pole, or use a cable machine. From there, you're gonna have more of a hip width stance. You're gonna bring the band or cable right to your belly button area, and then from there, you're gonna press straight out, and you're gonna hold for about a second or 2 before returning back to the start position. Now, you're gonna immediately notice your obliques turn on, your core just start to tighten in order for you to stay square and stay grounded here, and then come back to the side. So as you press out, the band's really doing its best to pull you this way. You have to resist that rotational force by staying square and keeping your arms out like this before bringing it back. All right, you're gonna feel a ton in your obliques and your core. You can experiment with longer holds. You can experiment with shorter holds, but just make sure that you get both sides. And I like 2 to 3 sets of 10 reps for this one. Some other ideas for anti-rotation are renegade rows, halos, and single arm planks. Again, all of which are fantastic options to train anti-rotation. Pattern number 3 is lateral flexion, and one of my favorite moves to train this pattern is the side plank dip. So with this one, you're gonna set up next to a bench like this, perpendicular. From there, you're gonna stack both feet on top of the bench. You can be here, or you can unstack them as well. Either way works. Now from here, you're gonna lift up into your traditional side plank. So at this top position, I really wanna see crown of your head tall, and I wanna see a straight line from the crown of your head all the way down towards your heels. Now from here, all you're gonna do is, just like the name implies, you're gonna dip. So you're gonna dip your hips down as low as you can, and then bring your hips up as high as you can. All right, so now you're not being neutral, you're actually getting a lot of dynamic movement, dynamic stability as you go through the movement. But here you're feeling a ton of obliques as you go up and down. And what you're really trying to do is get good lateral flexion at the spine from both angles. And then from there, you wanna make sure that you switch sides, and it looks like this. You're here, extend up, get neutral first, find neutral, and then go back and forth into lateral flexion, lateral extension, and try to aim for 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps. Now you can also try dumbbell side bends, kneeling overhead side crunches, and oblique heel taps if you want to switch things up and challenge your lateral flexion. All right, so pattern number 4 is going to be anti-lateral flexion, and my favorite move for this pattern is going to be the suitcase march. For the suitcase march, what you're gonna do is grab the kettlebell or dumbbell in one hand. You're gonna get nice and upright first, so find a nice tall position. From here, you're going to step with your knee up high, all right? So you're gonna bring this knee up high into a big marching position, then step forward, and then switch sides. All right, so you may have seen a regular suitcase carry. This is just an alternative take on that, where you're actually bringing your leg into a much higher degree of hip flexion as you go back and forth. And now as you're going, what you're really trying to do is stay tall, stay square, and stay neutral, as opposed to letting the kettlebell win and bending and kind of caving to its will. So do your best to use your obliques to get into more of an upright position. Hold this position as you go back and forth with your hip flexion suitcase marches. If this feels a little bit too tricky to deal with, you can just do regular carries as well, but either way works. But we like 2 to 3 sets of 30-second carries on each side. All right, so you can switch sides like this. Now you can mix things up with side planks, regular suitcase carries, and kneeling windmills to keep your anti-lateral flexion work unique and engaging. We're halfway there. Pattern number 5 is extension, and with it, the move we're gonna cover is the back extension. So you probably have a back extension machine at your gym. I got a home version called Nordex from Shogun, but what you're gonna do is get set up with the pad directly below your hip bones, all right? So you don't wanna be too low on the machine. You wanna try to get your hip bones directly above the hip pad here. From there, feet are relatively straight, and all you're gonna do is you're gonna slowly lower down and get into full flexion, or as much as you can. And then from here, you're gonna slowly come back up, using your lower back muscles to then extend as high as you're comfortable, all right? Try to get a good squeeze in your lower back muscles here before slowly returning back to the start position. All right, now this machine can kind of get a bad rap because a lot of people will use a ton of weight and kind of flail their way through the movement. You might be able to progress up to that point, but initially I want you to go slowly and really try to slowly unravel yourself and slowly find a good spot to stop your extension before coming back down. You don't want to treat this move too aggressively. You don't want to load it too heavily. You're just trying to work your back through a full range of motion, adding load when you can. And for this move, I typically like 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps. Now you can experiment with Supermans, reverse hypers, and bench back extensions to further address extension. All right, next up we have pattern number 6, which you've probably guessed by now, it's anti-extension, and we're gonna address it with a move called wall marching. All right, so for this one, you're gonna be next to a wall like so, and from here you wanna get your knees up and feet down. And the first thing that you wanna try to do is try to establish a neutral position with your lower back and spine. So what I want you to do is get this rib cage. I want you to try to flare it up as much as possible. And then from there, try to exhale and try to flatten it back down as much as possible. You're gonna do that a few times before you get to a point where your back is relatively flat on the ground and you're trying to get your rib cage fully depressed. And then once you get this position, you're gonna get your hands on the wall behind you with your arms slightly bent. From here, you're gonna bring your knees up and feet up like so, press into the wall, and slowly lower one heel down to the ground before coming back and switching sides. So the whole goal here is try to maintain this rib cage down position, abs engaged, lower back is down, neutral, while your legs go back and forth. And now the more proficient you get, the further out you can get with your strides until eventually you're fully straight out while maintaining good trunk control, good core connection, with this wall marching maneuver. And I like to get around 2 to 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps here in a slow and controlled fashion. Now, once you get the hang of wall marching, you can switch things up with moves like planks, ab wheel rollouts, and stability ball dead bugs to further dive into anti-extension. All right, so we're approaching the end here with pattern number 7, the one you're probably most familiar with, which is flexion. And my favorite move to address this pattern is going to be the reverse crunch. All right, so with the reverse crunch, you're gonna lay down on a bench and you're gonna grab the back of the bench like so. And now from here, you're gonna bring your knees and feet up and you're gonna slowly curl one vertebrae at a time all the way up until your knees hit your elbows. And then you're gonna slowly unravel yourself as you come back down. Stop right around here, right when your knees get to about a 90-degree angle before coming back up slowly. Now you're using your arms just as much as you need to in order for your abs to pull yourself up, okay? But what I don't wanna see is your legs come all the way down, tap here or tap the end of the bench, because you can easily use momentum to then pull yourself back up. I'd rather have you be here to start, reduce the risk for momentum, and slowly curl yourself up, using your abs, using your obliques to then unravel up and down. And I like this move for 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps. Now, as you probably know, you can do a million different flexing and crunching different exercises like crunches, sit-ups, and knee raises off a Roman chair or a pull-up bar. All of them are gonna be highly effective at targeting your abs. And finally, last but not least, pattern number 8 is going to be anti-flexion. Now, I'm not gonna spend too much time here because most of you naturally address anti-flexion with movements like deadlifts and bent over rows. Now, as long as you're including exercises that are trying to flex you over and you're trying to resist that force, you don't really need to do any additional exercises to train anti-flexion. So good mornings, RDLs, and dead start rows are all great options to add into your routine. And there you have it, the 8 patterns to get your core strong and functional. And fitting these 8 patterns into your routine is actually simpler than you might think. All you need to do is group 2 or 3 of these moves into a little mini circuit for 2 to 3 sets and do them at the start of your workout as part of your warm-up, or at the end of your workout as a finisher, or on an off day as a standalone session. All in all, it should only take about 6 to 8 minutes, and if you do that a few times a week, you'll have all of your bases covered. Now, if you're interested in quick circuit-style core training sessions, check out our downloadable guide, Pursuit Core, which is a 6-week progressive core training guide consisting of over 120 different exercises and 24 follow-along workouts. Click the link in the description box below to download the program and gain lifetime access. Now, if you found this video helpful, please hit that like button down below and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.